Everybody loves the prisoner's dilemma, but there's an even more interesting social experiment called the public goods game. Now, both of them have profound economic meaning, including a big aha moment, but in order to come back to that, we're going to have to start with the prisoner's dilemma. This assumes two criminals have committed a crime, been caught by the police, and separated. Each criminal is given a chance to snitch on their partner. Now, if they cooperate and no one snitches, the evidence against them isn't very strong and they'll be given the minimum sentence, 1 year. However, if one player snitches, they'll be given a plea deal, no jail time, and their partner will serve the maximum sentence, 3 years. But if both players snitch, they'll each receive a 2-year sentence. The prisoner's dilemma has been thoroughly studied, and it's generally understood that the optimal strategy is to always snitch on your partner. This ensures that your jail time will be no more than 2 years and gives you a chance to serve no jail time at all. Furthermore, if you understand that the optimal strategy is to always snitch, then you can assume your partner is going to snitch on you, and thus you have to do it just to prevent yourself from getting the 3-year sentence. Game theory implies that the optimal strategy is to always snitch. But over the years, we've been able to turn the prisoner's dilemma into all sorts of things, including game shows, and we have a lot of data on it. And it turns out that far more people cooperate than you would expect. Despite snitching being the optimal strategy, up to 40 to 50% of people cooperate in this scenario. This is very important and we will come back to it, but let's move on to the public goods game. In this, 5 players each have $10 and they're given an opportunity to anonymously contribute any amount of their money to an envelope. Once everyone's had a chance, the money in the envelope is doubled and then evenly redistributed to all the players. You might initially think that the optimal way to play this is for everyone to contribute all their money. 5 times 10 is $50 in the envelope, doubled to 100, divided by the 5 players again is $20 each. Everyone doubled their money. But this is only the optimal strategy as a group. Individually, for every dollar you contribute, you're only getting 40 cents back. So as an individual, it is actually optimal to contribute nothing, but just for everyone else to cooperate, which would be 4 times 10, $40 in the envelope, doubled to 80, divided by 5 is 16, plus the $10 you started with is $26. This is particularly interesting because in the prisoner's dilemma, there is incentive to cooperate. You can get a lower sentence. But in the public goods game, there is no such incentive. Every dollar you contribute is a loss. You just want the other people to cooperate. The great thing about the public goods game is that it is relatively inexpensive to play. The version I showed is about $100 a game, so economists and psychologists can get relatively large data sets. It's also not binary. Players can and do choose anywhere from $0 to $10, so the results end up being a range, which is much more useful to science. But the most interesting results come when the same group is allowed to play the game multiple times. At first, participation rates start high, around 50%, similar to the prisoner's dilemma, but the more they play, the less they cooperate. It'd be easy to assume that this is because as people get more experience play the game, they understand the strategy better, and they play more optimally. However, the aha moment comes from a very unique twist. In this case, experimenters let a group play the game 10 times in a row, and then they announce to the game before playing the 11th game that they are starting over. Now in truth, nothing actually changes. Nothing about the rules or the money they've won or lost. They're just telling everyone that they're starting over. But in fact, this is just the 11th game. And yet, cooperation rates usually go back to near 50%. In this, you can't argue that the players don't know how to play the game. They just played it 10 times. The conclusion here is a little nuanced, but if you combine this with the results of the prisoner's dilemma, it implies that there is some internal drive for humans to cooperate, but only so long as they don't feel like they're being taken advantage of, like they do the longer they play the public goods game. People are willing to cooperate as long as everyone cooperates and not past a certain point. Now, this internal drive may be instinctive or societal, but it comes up a lot in behavioral economics. So why is this important? Well, it's called the public goods game because it's how economists perceive public goods to work. I'll eventually do several episodes about public goods because they are fascinating, but for now all you really need to understand is that they are things everyone can enjoy, but no single person is incentivized to produce. These are things like public parks, roads, or fireworks display. Things commonly produced or provided by the government. In fact, the whole game is really just a model of taxation. Instead of deciding how much you're going to put in the envelope, the government tells you how much you have to through setting tax rates. They then collect the money and produce and maintain public goods. Of course, in a democracy, political will determines who is in power and ultimately who sets the tax rates. This would imply that taxation is a blend between what society needs and what people are willing to pay. Tax rates are typically around trying to fund something, where tax cuts or preventing tax hikes is typically associated with some type of a political gain. If you follow this reasoning long enough, you might make the conclusion that our tax rates are set based on what we as a society perceive as fair, and may have very little to do with what our society actually needs. The primary source for the video is Misbehaving by Thaler. Absolutely fantastic book. If you like the video, I'd strongly recommend this one on hindsight bias. It's about why you remember the past differently than it actually occurred. Another great topic from Misbehaving and behavioral economics in general. Stick around the channel for future content, and I will talk to you soon.